Hello, fellow female activists. Today we are learning about nourishment. All righty. Cathy Perez here, Cathy Perez, your fellow female activist and wellness coach. And we are here today and we are going to again talk about nourishment. So as we always start, okay, if you're familiar already, we will start with what we call our positive quotient repetitions or PQ reps for short. So whether you are feeling, at all at uneasy, know that this is actually going to put you in a better state of mind altogether. So just like if you were meditating, put yourself in a place where you feel safe, preferably where it's quiet, so you can be alone, okay? And if you feel safe, feel free to close your eyes as I will do so. Alrighty. Again, whether you're sitting, standing, laying down, what I want you to do is to grow your tallest spine, okay? Grow your tallest self, elongate your spine, all right? And then, even if you're laying down, you can get your feet so that they're now flat on whatever surface they are, and really sink into your four corners of your feet. Feel yourself grounding into the floor. Feel the sensations going around your feet. Your feet have the most receptors, nerve receptors in your body. It's extraordinary how much input we get from our feet. Feel yourself again with all four corners grounding into the floor if you have that ability. And then, even if you have shoes on and you feel safe, go ahead and pick up your toes, spread them out. You don't ever do this. And then go ahead and keep them spread, but put them back down now. So now, with your feet completely secure on that surface, really feel what your feet are telling you. How many little nuances are you feeling now, if possible? If you're able to feel your feet, what can your legs now feel? What can your core feel? Now let's go ahead and we're going to work on our breath. But instead of changing our breath, what we're going to do is actually just listen to our breath. So every time you breathe, feel and listen to what that sounds like. Can you feel the inhale as well as hear it? Can you feel as well as hear your exhale? What is your chest feeling as you breathe? And when you're ready, feel free to blink your eyes open and we will be coming back. I know that if I feel more centered, you must feel the same. And I recognize again that, different people had different usage of their body. So forgive me for taking advantage of the fact that I do have use of my limbs. Positive quotient repetitions, i.e. PQ reps, do depend on the availability of such ableism, if you so wish to use that word. So I will do my best always to remember that my cues might not always be accessible to everyone, and I'll do my best to, do my best to make it usable for you. So with that, today, again, my fellow female activists, we are going to learn a little bit about nourishment. So why do I use the words I do? It is important. So if I were I guess you could say, entrenched in the what you'd call a health and fitness world, then I would use the word, okay, what is your, what do your meals look like? What is your, nutrition? But there's a lot wrong with the health and wellness industry, and it's slowly getting better. But talk about isms, right? There's a lot behind how the health and wellness fitness industry has developed. Okay, so without going too far, like I said, the reason why I'm using the word nourishment, it's simply because when we put anything into our body, whether that's liquid, whether that is, again, any type of consumption, i.e., some type of anything that we would consider nourishment to our body. Okay, that's why I call it that versus, oh, we're going to talk about nutrients. We're going to talk about, no one really cares about that stuff. But if I put it in terms that then equate to how much energy can I get from this, right? How much return on investment, ROI, can I get on this particular whatever it is in my body that I'm going to put in my body, that will actually fuel you, right? That will get your attention. So nourishment, okay? So we, again, talked about how we have mental fitness, right? In the intro video some time back, and then how that is combined with our physical, right, fitness. So all of these subtopics are still intertwined, mental and physical. But because of how we have been taught, right, we don't think of them as, oh, well, this is mental based. Oh, this is physical. We've been taught, right, exactly, that they're separate from each other, but they're really not. So what I'm trying to do is bring them together for you so that you understand how they actually interrelate. Okay, so nourishment. Awesome. Nourishment, we love nourishment. And I'm going to keep this as general as I can, but I will bring in science. Again, I'm a wellness coach, so I know about nutrition and so forth, but I'm going to do my best. I will do my best to put this in terms which actually relate to how you can utilize this like today. Okay. So first off, meals. Okay. There's tons of talk about how many meals someone should eat. Well, guess what? You know your body best. And that is enough. What I would then add on, okay, so let's say you're not the type of person that likes to wake up and then eat something. Okay, that's fair. But can you at least, okay, because let's say you're like me. I used to, funny enough, only have my movement practice after my work, okay, so in the evenings. Well, then I, went through all these different coaches, not all of them, but, through different mentors, through different research, so forth and so on. I then decided it's easier for me, okay, and more advantageous for my schedule if I worked out, I had my movement practice in the AM, meaning I took care of my self-care, like ultimately for me in the morning. So that's what I've been up to since like 2016, maybe, probably even earlier than that, but at least 20 for sure, 2016. I know for sure that that's when I changed from usually a afternoon or evening workout to now pretty much I am an AM type person. And with the caveat that I actually don't eat breakfast, my first meal, until after actually I've gone through my movement practice and then showered, right? So then I eat and then I'm ready to take on my day. business and so forth and so on. Why do I say all that? Because the timing of your meals does matter. And so does your preference. Okay. So again, if you're not the type of person who wants to, so in other words, as me, an example, again, I wake up sometimes as early as, honestly, it's not the best, but I wake up sometimes as early as 4:30 in the morning so that I can get to my 5:30. I shouldn't say get to because I work out at home. I have my movement practice at home, but the class online starts at 5:30 a.m. my time. So that means that to get in the regular self-care that I would normally take care of before my movement practice, I get to do that a little earlier, right? So the earliest day for me is on a Friday. I get self-care in, then and that doesn't include meals, is what I'm getting at. So I get self-care in, take on my movement practice at 5:30 in the morning, I shower, and then I eat. So that's not necessarily ideal because my goal is to be the strongest ever. So I'm level 50. I'm age 50. I want to power lift. That means that I best feed my body quickly, especially if I'm going to power lift. Now, I haven't started powerlifting, but with that intention, I know that I get to feed my body as soon as I'm done with my movement practice, depending on what it is, right? So what I'm getting at is you get to find out what is the best meal amount for you on a daily basis. Each day might actually be different, okay? But in my case, for the most part, I have my movement practice take place while I'm fasting, meaning I don't eat before I start my self-care and or my movement practice. I wait until afterwards. And this was even when I was training for a half marathon. Probably not the best, but needless to say, you get into your habits and they work for you. Now, what I'm getting at is that if you, again, don't happen to like breakfast, okay, that's okay. But at least put something in your tummy. And it doesn't have to be like a full plate omelet, right? Is what I'm getting at. It can be something as what my Jen Pike, I love her to death, my mentor calls elixirs. And so they have fat, protein, and then there's some type of warm mug, right? It's a sort of what you'd call like she calls it the mug of yummy mugs. But basically, it's kind of like what you would consider a healthier version of bullet coffee, so to speak, right? So at least put something in your body, if not before you work out, if that's okay with you, at least afterwards, right? So that you're not totally still fasting up until, say, a lunch hour, whatever that might be. So meals, again, what I'm getting at is that just because the dietary recommendations of, let's say, the different organizations around the world say, oh, you should get 3 square meals. Well, not everyone, again, wants to have 3 meals, and that's okay. But based on your activity, okay, especially if you are having a really busy week, please think about fueling your body at least more often than you would normally. Simply because if you usually only eat 1 meal a day, and I don't recommend that, but if you happen to be someone who does, then think about what activities you have going on in any one particular day, and then do your best to supplement in whatever nourishment you can get it. That might take the form of, protein bars, hopefully not laden with a ton of sugar, but, snacks that you take with you. Okay. While not optimum as a just sit down meal, at least you have some type of fuel mechanism for you on your day-to-day basis, right? So again, what I'm starting out with is the fact that meals are up to the individual. You're an adult, okay? And I would ask you, when you do eat, how do you feel before, during, and after? What I mean is, um, how are you taking in that consumption? Because that matters too. And I'll get more into that on at another time. But I wanted to start with the idea of nourishment and make you think about the fact, okay, how often do I eat in a day? And we do want to include snacks, okay? When you're thinking about, okay, how many meals do I have? Well, again, let's say I am really serious about powerlifting. Well, guess what? I actually should be eating more than 3 meals, quite honestly. I should have a snack somewhere in between simply because my whole point is to get a ton of muscle, right? I like want to be as strong as possible, but it takes glucose to build muscle. And so the more glucose I eat, the faster my muscles are going to build. And that's a very, simplified version of it, but meals do matter. And so you get to decide if I'm only eating 1 meal a day, how the heck do I expect to have the energy necessary? And keep in mind, this whole channel is about creating, right? On-demand natural energy. And that's totally possible. And I can assure you that it's a lot easier on your mind and body when you have sufficient fuel. Okay. So if you're someone who, again, maybe only eats 1 at the most 2 meals a day, you may want to think about where you're getting all your energy from and then see if you might be able to add in at least maybe a snack or two. Okay. In my case, I actually do prefer eating 3 meals a day. Sometimes it goes down to 2, but again, if I want to start really powerlifting, it means I'm going to get to eat at least minimum 3 meals a day to make sure I have enough protein, right? So to help me grow big and strong, so to speak. Okay, so that was a lot just to say, evaluate how many meals you have, okay, in any given day, and then decide, is this really benefiting me? Okay, and you can even put in the comments, oh, I eat this many meals for this type of activity. And I can give you a little bit of guidance, right? So that's always something. Okay, so meals. Meals are part of nourishment, right? Anytime we are consuming anything, to include hydration, right? Anything we put in our body, it's up to us. We have 100% control over that. And so it also means that we get to decide how often we're going to eat something. And I would prefer that you get at least 2 meals at the very least a day. Okay, that I can accept. But 1 meal a day, that really is not going to cut it. I'm sorry. You have too much going on as an activist, and your brain needs fuel. Okay, and we're going to actually give that a little bit more definition. All right, so the meals, got over that. If you're only eating once a day, please, 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 if you do nothing else, please pick up another meal somewhere. All right. All right. So previously I said, oh, we're not going to get into the minutia, so to speak, but I at least want to give you, again, if you don't already know this, the oversight of what it means to have nourishment. Okay. And so that comes in the form of our macros and our micronutrients. So we're not going to get into macros. Okay. That's minerals and vitamins. But I do want to talk about macros. Okay. This is what we would consider our building blocks. Okay. So you have macronutrients and then you have micros. Again, I can get into minutiae, but I'm just trying to give broad definitions so that it makes more sense and you're not totally bored. So macros, okay? You can look this up, So water is actually a macronutrient. Why? Because if you don't have it, you die. Little tidbit, right? We can last longer if we have water, even if we have not eaten anything for days, sometimes months, right? But if we have the reverse, we won't last very long. We require water to survive. We require, obviously, nourishment to survive, but we can actually keep living as long as we have water. Why? Because that's what replenishes, right? We definitely need nutrients, but our meals, okay, food is important, but not as important as water. Keep that in mind. Why did I separate that from what we would consider nourishment? Well, because not enough people understand the importance of the hydration. So keep in mind, though, a macronutrient is in fact water. Okay. So water is one of them. But again, that's something that we actually talk about on its own, correct? That's how important it is. Then another macronutrient is protein. Okay. So again, someone like me who is going to start powerlifting, I require a slew of protein, a lot more than the suggested 30 grams per meal that the daily recommendation is. No, I need like a ton, like we're talking 100 grams, or if not more, 120 grams each day, right? And so I want you to understand what protein does, okay? So we already know what water does. It lubricates us. So protein, okay? Protein basically is what is the building blocks, if you're not already familiar, on how everything grows in our body, okay? So protein, it's a must, okay? Again, if you're only eating one meal a day, that is not enough protein for your actual functioning body to like function correctly. That's just what it is, it comes down to. Um, Please understand that protein is what builds muscles, okay? So the more protein you eat, the faster you're going to see development of any particular muscle, right? If that's what your goal is. Strength comes with muscle. So protein is definitely a necessity if you're looking to build strength. And I would hope as activists, that's one of your key goals, because you can't be outside all day protesting and carrying heavy stuff if you don't have the strength to do it. All right. Protein is a must. Like it's something you should have at every meal. Okay. It also, protein will keep you satiated longer. All right. So that means that you will feel full longer so that you can go longer in between meals if necessary. Okay. So maybe you are a 2 meal person. Okay. So you can have a wonderful, let's say, and I move towards vegetarian veganism, but I am definitely not full-fledged either of those. So I am what you would consider omnivore, but I do my best to choose more vegetarian and vegan meals if given the opportunity. With that said, let's say that you decide to make yourself a huge omelet, okay, in the morning for breakfast. And then you are busy all day long. And then you finally eat dinner at, like, say, 6 in the evening. So you've gone, let's say you ate at 8 in the morning and you've waited now until 6 p.m. to eat. Well, guess what? The only thing I can tell you is that you best have had a lot of protein in the morning, which eggs have protein, but not like, I mean, you could throw other stuff in there with the eggs, to include tofu, to include, whatever type of animal products you might, if that's you. That satiation could actually last quite some time, all right? And it could maybe last until 6 p.m. that night, but let's not push it. But satiation is a big component of protein. It will keep you full longer, and that's awesome. But keep in mind that protein gets used up, and so it needs to be replenished. So at 6 p.m., you best have something that has a lot of protein in it, okay? Again, you might be satiated for quite some time, but you don't want to then keep it depleted. Your body requires the protein, okay? I will always insist that you really consider the fact that your brain takes up 20% of all your consumption. All the energy that you create by digestion, all the nutrients that you ingest, right? Or create through ingestion, then becomes glucose for this. That's why it's so important. So protein, big deal. You definitely want to up the protein. Okay. Then we have our other macronutrient, which is carbohydrates. And let me first dispel what you might be thinking a carbohydrate is. A carbohydrate, okay, a simple carb is a piece of bread. A complex carbohydrate is any vegetable. All right. So when people say, oh, we wanted to have a low carb diet, no, you have just eliminated every single vegetable that will then give you the necessary nutrition, i.e., your macro and your micronutrients. Okay. Carbohydrates are a must. Carbohydrates turn the fastest into glucose, which then, yep, feeds this. again, 20% of your consumption of any energy you create goes here. That means that whatever is left gets splattered around, like, it just gets spluttered, what's a word I could use? It gets spread out, right? But 20% of everything you just ate at any one time comes up here. And that's okay. That's the way it's supposed to be. But that means that if you're only eating once a day, there is not enough for your brain to think clearly consistently. All right. You will feel more clever. You will feel more confident. You will have more energy if you consume more nourishment. Okay. I want you to, right now, if you get nothing else out of this video, is to understand the importance of carbohydrates are a necessity for your life. I love root vegetables. And those are starchy, but they are still a vegetable, okay? I love green leafy anything, except for kale. Kale and me, we just don't get along. Or iceberg lettuce for that matter. But all of that, that's a carb. Those are carbs. Please understand, carbohydrates are so necessary for life. So I want you to think about any and all diet mentality and throw it away. Like, honestly, you require carbohydrates. And that is because your body needs that connection. All right. It needs all of that stuff in your body to then create fuel. All right. So carbohydrates keep you healthier. All right. Just make sure that you're getting enough. Okay. And yes, you can overload, but you can overload on any of these macronutrients, right? I mean, I know bodybuilders who will eat like beef jerky like every hour. Please, maybe not do that, but at least understand the necessity of why they're doing it. They're trying to build muscle. Okay. So protein, carbs, and again, water is a macronutrient, but it's off on its own because it's so important. So we've gone through protein, we've gone through carbohydrates, which include vegetables. Okay. Now we're going to get to fats. Okay. You're thinking, what? Yes, we want fat in our diet, in our nourishment. Okay. In our nourishment repertoire, as it is. Fats are important. You know what fats do? They carry the vitamins and minerals throughout our body and into our head. So it is imperative that we get what we want to quote unquote say are healthy fats. Avocados, okay, extra virgin olive oil. So anything that's not been totally processed, I mean, any oil is a process, right? But what I'm getting at is that there's a difference between the hydrogenated version of vegetable oil, unfortunately, versus, again, like coconut oil, right? Fats are necessary. Again, they are the carriers. They are the messengers, okay, that bring the nutrients from what we ate, and then they send it into our bodies. Fat is necessary to actually think properly. Let that sink in. Fats are necessary to think properly. We require the fats because the fats then connect the different parts of the neurotransmitters. They basically send, okay, they're the senders and they help the neurotransmitters connect to each other, which means that's how we think. So fats, absolutely, you need some fat in your life. And again, avocados, nuts, seeds, all of those are fats, okay? You get to understand the necessity of nourishment because it all ends up here first. Again, 20%. I'm going to drill that into 20% of everything you eat ends up here first. That's why it's so important that we nourish our bodies. So fats, okay? Again, I'm not going to go into it unless people ask, like you can ask a question, I'll do my best to answer it. But all you get to understand is that everything you've been told, okay, is BS until you hear it now in the last, let's say, 10 years, honestly. And I would prefer that you go to female, okay, practitioners of health and fitness and wellness because they're the ones actually getting stuff done and turning the tables on what, again, was a patriarchal and misogynistic view of the health and wellness industry, okay, to include nutrition. So again, we're got macronutrients, water, protein, then we have carbohydrates and fats. And now the last one is boring, but it's fiber. And you're thinking, what is fiber? Fiber is boring, but it's actually very, very useful and it's required if you want to have proper digestion. So think about it this way. It's like I want to say it's like a vacuum cleaner. That's the best way I can think of it. It basically anything that's hanging out in your bloodstream, okay, anything that's in the hormonal areas, like anything that is just stagnant in your digestive system, fiber clings to it, or rather, it collects all of that waste, okay, that stuff that's just hanging out, and then it sweeps it all out into what finally becomes our waste, i.e., our bio waste, I should say. And so when you, again, have a healthy void, um, that means that fiber has been involved because everything that came out of your fecal matter, right? That was fiber helping. And if I'm grossing you out, I'm sorry, but it's science. That's all it is. It's our anatomy. So fiber, again, multigrain, stuff like that. Fiber comes, avocados are like a superfood because it has fiber in it. All right. So it's a fat and it's a fruit. Can you believe that? And holy cow, it has fiber. It is so awesome. So you eat a delicious avocado and its particles go into your digestive system and then it collects all of this really cool, just leftover stuff in the digestive system. And then it sends it on its way, packaged really just so nicely. And that's what you end up voiding out, right? When you have a void, i.e., when you have a bowel movement and there's a full void, that means that the fiber has helped collect everything that was in your digestive system. And now it's in the toilet. Okay. So fiber is necessity for basically the cleaning of your digestive system. That is its main purpose, right? It helps just collect stuff that should not linger. And then it lets it automatically just come out very easily. Fiber also then makes it easier to get your business done. And I have full appreciation for what it means to eat enough fiber because I know what it was like when I didn't eat enough fiber. I am in probably late stages menopause, or I should say I'm probably in menopause. I was probably in perimenopause, and now I'm gonna believe menopause. I get to get checked. But just know this, that the more fiber you have in your life before perimenopause and now into perimenopause and menopause, the happier your tummy is going to be, okay, overall. But definitely in this time when our bodies unfortunately start to deplete in the hormones that we were so used to, okay, that means that our nourishment is so much more important. So those are your macros when it comes to nourishment. Your macronutrients are imperative to give you the energy, the on-demand energy that you want so much, okay? Processed foods, they don't really contain a lot of this stuff. Now, yes, they're going to say, oh, it's high in protein. It has fiber, but it's synthetically induced, okay? So there's nothing, your body won't recognize something so processed, it doesn't know what to do with it. So I would suggest, again, when you're thinking about these macronutrients or whenever you're just thinking about eating something, try to pick items, okay, or meals that are less processed. When you do that, you're going to be in the better predicament because the more processed something is, the less it was originally at its original state. So an apple, okay, apples are awesome. They are a fruit. They have fiber. Okay, an apple in its original form, like you can slice it up. That's processing, believe it or not, because you have taken the apple instead of just eating it in chunks, right? You've now sliced it. Well, guess what? That is considered processed, but that's how simple a process can be. Processing food can simply be just cutting it up so it's easier to eat, but you've still maintained most of its nutrient value. As you keep going down that apple life, let's say you decided to turn it into applesauce. That's another process. So you have processed the apple even more. If it's a natural version of the apple, i.e., you haven't added tons of other stuff into it, that's still an apple. It's lost a lot of its fiber, though, because the skin has the fiber, right? But yet you still get nutrients out of it. But because you've cooked it in some way, shape, or form, some of the nutrients have now been lost, right? So again, when you're thinking about nourishment, try to think about foods that have not been processed quite so much, and you'll be on the right path. Okay. This has been a long video, I know, but it's something that's so important. Nourishment, again, when we nourish ourselves better, we feel better. And that means we're going to think better. And that means we're going to be able to come upon difficult situations with a lot more ease and flow. Okay. So my CTA to you today is maybe, look and check out how often you eat on a daily basis. Like on average, how many meals do you have in a day? All right. And if it's if it's less than two, then you get to think about how can I fit in at least one other optimal time that I can get in more nourishment. Okay. Meals matter and you want to make them count. Okay. So if you really can't find any more time to at least sit down and eat at least one meal, then make it so darn awesome that at least you can appreciate it. Okay. So that's my call to action to you. Figure out how you might be able to fit in more than just that one meal. Okay. And also, if you're interested in learning more about how that you can learn more about the PQ program, I have just the most awesome, actually 12-month program, How to Get Sage and Strong. It's a lifestyle for change makers. So we can talk about that. If you want, just put comment below Sage, and I'll make sure to connect with you. Okay. For now, we will see you next time. Take care, take charge. God bless.